The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Game Podcast Network is brought to you by Arnick Fantasy. They're coming to customers. Play just $5. Get $100 bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. And welcome, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It is currently Saturday night, October 25th, around 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm as always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the breakdown of the finals in Basel and Vienna. Going to break down those two matchups taking place on Sunday. Before we get into any of the actual breakdown of the matches, a reminder to support the show by liking and subscribing on YouTube. And a reminder, you also head to Spotify and Apple to listen to the show there. Leave a rating and a review when you do so. So you can find the podcast either video format on YouTube or even audio format only on Spotify or Apple. But like, subscribe on YouTube and leave a rating and a review to help the show grow. Plus, a reminder, we have some merchandise on the SGPN merch store. We have a lot of great tennis stuff, shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, different colors, very affordable and comfortable. Recommend you checking out our selection there on the merch store. Plus, a reminder, we also have the NBA Gambling Podcast, which is underway, which I'm also co-hosting. And the NBA season, of course, did start already. Check out the NBA show Monday through Friday. We cover every game on the card during that span. We give out the best bets at the end of the show with the Lock and Dog segment. And we even do some underdog entries if you do want some thoughts there. But check out the NBA Gambling Podcast on this network if you do want some NBA picks during the weekdays. Anyway, moving on to the recap of the last episode for the Lock and Dog. Another undefeated episode, but once again, a non-sweep. We keep getting retirements. We keep getting voids in the tournaments. So either way, ended up winning the lock. We had Dimenauer team total under 8.5, minus 125. If he got 7.5, that won too, as Sinner killed him. No shock there. Sinner owns him, 12-0 lifetime. Same story, different day. Nice, easy win for Sinner. For the dog, we were cruising. And then Humbert quit. We had Fekina team total over 12.5 at plus 105. Won the first set in a breaker, was up a break in the second set, and Humbert said, I don't want to be here anymore, and he ended up quitting. So if you took Fekina money line, then your book should have paid you because one full set was completed. I chose the team total instead, and ironically, choosing the safer option gave me a worse result because money line would have given us the win, and instead the team total gave us the push. So it is what it is. I'd say it balances out with the Chapo push from the day prior because Chapo won the first set, was going to go under his team total, and he quit. So it kind of balances out. Both voids even out that way. But either way, we've been undefeated so far in these two events. We swept the first episode. We ended up having two separate wins and voids. So overall undefeated. 4-0-2 so far during the course of the week. But either way, we'll try to sweep the finals here taking place on Sunday. So moving on to the actual recap of the semis, really not any drama. Fonseca ended up beating Munar. We did like Fonseca in that one. Didn't mind the team total for him as well. And he won 7-6, 7-5. Fun match, came down to the wire. Munar ended up getting broken in the final set a couple of times. He actually led by a break early in the second set, and then he got broken a couple of times, and Fonseca was able to shut the door en route to a nice straight set win. As for Fekina, said a second ago, we did like the value against Humbert. He is incredible against lefties, and that trend continued. He finally got some revenge from Humbert as he ended up beating Humbert after losing to him last year in Marseille. But nice win for Fekina, and once again, Fekina is one match away from winning his first ever ATP title. He's been so close, yet so far, and now we get to do it all over again as he's one match away from winning his first ever title in Basel. So not any drama there. Moving on to Vienna, no drama either. You saw Sinner beat Dimenauer in straight sets. Same story, different day, 12-0 lifetime, yada, yada. For Zverev, though, fun match against Musetti. We actually thought Musetti was alive to win it. He had some chances, but ended up not really doing anything. You're looking at Musetti, who I believe generated no break points in the entire match. Zverev's first serve percentage was outrageous. Zverev ended up landing 83% of his first serves, and he won 83% of his first serve points. You're not going to lose if you serve that well, just simply put, especially Zverev, who does have a pretty good first serve overall. But Musetti, we know, is a good returner. Not on Saturday, because he did not threat at any point, and eventually Zverev found some openings and was able to convert on the return side, and he was able to win 6-4, 7-5. So really not much drama. Favorites won 3 out of the 4. Fekina we did pick for value that did get there. But we thought Zverev would be a bit of a battle there against Musetti, and he wasn't. Sinner, though, dominated. And Sinner, if you ended up backing my advice and you took Sinner to win the event without dropping a set, it was a way to get plus money for Sinner, and that is still alive entering the final. But either way, we have two matchups taking place on Sunday. One, which was unexpected, between Fonseca and Fokina. Fonseca, as a reminder, did win an ATP title already on clay, so that he is not going for his first hardcore title he's going for. But Fokina, we've seen him lose in heartbreaking fashion twice so far this year, and we'll see if he can finally get over the hump and beat Fonseca to win his first ever title. As for Vienna, pure chalk, Sinner and Zverev in the final, and we'll see what happens there. Besides that, though, thinking of anything else worth talking about, and there actually was one piece of, I'd say, news I wanted to mention briefly. It does go back to the concerns involving the actual schedule for the ATP Tour, and there apparently is going to be a new tournament that's been pitched in Saudi Arabia. So you might end up seeing another 1,000 event. So we'll see what happens for the ATP. But either way, wanted to mention it briefly because I feel like some people are a bit annoyed by it. But either way, it's going to be added potentially as early as 2028. So there might be another 1,000 event, which honestly, I think we have enough of them. I get that the money that Saudi's throwing out there in terms of just overall sports, whether it involves golf for live, you have F1 if you want to go for that type of auto racing, soccer, of course. I know Saudi's spending a lot of money in sports, but I'm just confused where this is going to fit on the actual calendar. We have players dropping like flies. We had another retirement in Basel. We saw 3 retirements in Basel in the quarters and 1 in the semis. And a reminder in Vienna, Griekspoor walked over, or he ended up withdrawing from the event. And Mensik walked over in his event as well in Basel. So players are running out of gas completely, and now we might be adding another 1,000, I'd say, event going on. So I do think it's going to be a pretty interesting, I'd say, controversy as far as I'm concerned. Not even mentioning the actual, of course, issues people have with sports partnering up with Saudi in the first place, with the human rights stuff. I'm not even going to go that far. The point is, for the sake of the actual players, it's kind of a disaster. I don't really know where you're supposed to put this on the calendar. Of course, I'm not going to turn down more tennis. As a fan, I do enjoy tennis. But when players keep getting hurt at the end of the year, and you have players who are very vocal about the actual brutality of the tennis schedule, I don't know where you're going to put this. But I have to mention it because it is going to be happening in a couple of years. So not anytime soon, but I don't think they're going to actually remove any pre-existing 1,000 events. It sounds like they're going to be adding one as an expansion. But I am a bit concerned when it comes to the actual planning of the event and when it's going to take place on the calendar. You can argue that you really can't do it towards the end of the year because the calendar's already loaded and you have the ATP finals coming up in a couple of weeks. So maybe post-Australian Open, maybe pre-Australian Open. Like, I'm trying to think of when it would actually fit. I doubt you're going to have a massive hardcourt event during the clay and/or grass season. So I guess around the Australian Open, maybe right after it, you delay the start of clay season and you kind of go from there. But I wanted to mention it because I'm sure most people have not actually known this was a news story that happened. But it basically was passed. So it does seem like there will be a new 1,000 event in Saudi Arabia starting in 2028. So we'll see how that goes. Wanted to mention it, though, because it does kind of go hand in hand with the amount of retirements we've seen in Basel over the past week or so. A lot of players are running on fumes, and we'll see where they fit this on the calendar. But look, I think Djokovic made some comments during the last labor negotiations where apparently the players might not have read the fine print involving the amount of events and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. Djokovic will probably be retired by then, so that's not going to be an issue for him. But I do think for a decent portion of the ATP Tour, we're going to see how they handle it because we've seen a lot of injuries and adding events isn't going to help. So, yeah, I wanted to mention that Saudi might be adding an event, or they will be adding an event in about 3 years. So we'll go from there, and we'll cross that bridge when we cross that bridge. Anyway, moving on, I see a comment from Dark Knight asking about my thoughts on the Bencic match against Noskova. I don't really have any strong opinions on it, to be honest. I followed that event barely. I know that Bencic ended up beating, I believe it was Kenin, in 3 sets yesterday. Let me just quickly see if I have any actual thoughts on that match quickly. I mean, she's barely played. You're looking at Noskova's matches, and she ended up beating Kessler in 3, beat Kolinskaya, who basically was injured on arrival. She ended up retiring, and then Rybakina didn't show up. So you were looking at her basically coasting to the to the final of the event. Bencic has earned her spot, ended up beating Kenin, beat Mukova, beat Gradjeva. But I think you can make the argument Noskova might be more rested, but she hasn't really beaten anybody in the entire event. I'll go for Bencic if I had to go for a pick, but I'm not going to bet it. I think that you've seen a lot of marathons in this tournament, so I don't mind the over potentially, but I'll go Bencic. At least she's looked good. Noskova's gone there by doing basically the bare minimum. She got an A on the group project, and now she's in the final. So I'll go for Bencic if I had to pick somebody, but mainly based on the lack of impressive wins I've seen from Noskova, in my opinion. So if you think the other girl wins, that's fine. I'm not going to bet it, but either way, I'd pick Bencic, but I'm not going to have any action on that event for the final. Anyway, time to go on into the breakdown of the men's finals taking place on Sunday. Before we get into those two matchups, though, a reminder they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is MyBook.ag. Using the bet on football, tennis, basketball, hockey, baseball, you name it. They also have a prop builder second to none. Use crypto for funding your account for getting nice payouts. And a reminder, when you head to MyBook.ag, use code SGPN for a special 100% bet back bonus up to $500 from customers. MyBook.ag promo code SGPN. Once again, 100% bet back bonus, $500 from customers. MyBook.ag promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Novig, which is the number one prediction market for sports in America. Get into great prices. And a reminder, it's available in a bunch of states, 35 plus, to make sure it's available in your state. Download the Novig app. When you do, you get $50 to spend just $5 if you use our promo code SGPN. Get an action with Novig, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the preview, the recap, of the semis. Time to go on into the final. Now, Vienna's technically first. However, I think we all know that the Sinner-Zverev match is the main course, and the Fonseca-Fokina matchup is the appetizer. So we'll go out of order. We'll do Fonseca first for the sake of this one. Fokina taking on Fonseca, taking place at around 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. For this one, very, very close on the books. You're looking at Fonseca being about minus 115. Fokina is around minus 105, and for the over-under, 23.5. For the set spread, you have Fokina to win in straight sets at around plus 222. I have Fonseca to win in straight sets at around plus 212. So basically the same price either way. The over 2.5 sets is at plus 125. Now, for the head-to-head history, faced off one time in Cincinnati. You might remember it. It was actually controversial. Fokina won the first set in a tiebreak, was up 4-0 in the second set, lost 5 games in a row, and said, I really don't want to be here. And he quit. He quit after leading 7-6, 4-0. Happened a couple months ago. Now we're back on hard court, and we'll see who ends up winning this event. Now, for the actual path so far, Fonseca's been solid. He had a couple of lucky breaks, pointing out the actual draw. But the matchups he won, he's been good. He ended up beating Perricard in straight sets, defending champion. Walkover against Mensik, not his problem. Shapo, he settled in after the first set, won, and Shapo retired in the middle of the third. He was going to win anyway, but either way, he did look better as the match went on, and Munar was competitive, but he ended up winning in straight sets. Fokina has been good as well, beat Sonigo in straight sets, beat Brooksby in an absolute war. Rude got injured in the first set, retired after losing the first set, and the same thing happened with Humbert. Humbert lost the first set in a breaker, got injured, and ended up having to quit in the second set. So Fokina has gone by while getting retirement wins in the last 2 rounds. Fonseca had a walkover and a retirement, then beat Munar in the semis. So both guys have had abridged paths based on the actual injuries throughout the entire event in Basel. But the question here for the actual matchup, do I think there's going to be a potential opportunity for Fokina to not choke away the match? I'll put it this way. I think we saw in Cincinnati, which is also a fast-paced court. It wasn't as fast-paced as previous years, but I do want to point out Fokina did look good. However, we know that the ticking time bomb, which is Fokina, is going to strike at some point. It did briefly against Brooksby as he blew 4 match points and got broken. But he got the break back and then did end up winning anyway. But I think for the sake of the match, I'm going to go with Fonseca. At the end of the day, I do think his firepower translates better to the courts here in Basel. Fokina has been very good. I'm not going to deny it, but it's also a bit of a prove-it scenario to me. If I'm going to keep blindly fading Fokina in the final of events, whether it involved the final in Delray against Kekmanovic, the final of DC against De Minaur, coincidentally, two guys that we actually had to win the event who won courtesy of Fokina choke jobs. I do think I'll keep blindly fading Fokina in the finals of events until he actually wins one. I won't believe it until I actually see it. That's the approach I'm taking. And so far, it's been pretty good. Now, Fokina, you could argue, is the better player. I wouldn't argue with you. I think Fokina has proven it on a bigger sample. Fonseca's younger. He's a teen phenom, and he's probably going to end up being top 10 in the world at some point. But you're looking at Fokina, who we know is known to self-destruct. And if I think Fonseca puts the pressure on, am I sure Fokina will hold his nerves emotionally? The answer is no, I'm not. So based on that and based on what I saw against Brooksby, I think he was a bit fortunate that he ended up beating compromised players in the last two rounds with Humbert and Ruud. So he couldn't actually see the collapse in full motion because both guys quit before they could actually happen. If Fokina wins the first set and ends up being up a break in the second and he gives the break back, I'm just assuming he's going to lose. Like at this point in his career. Now, I would be really happy if I was wrong. I want to see Fokina win. It's depressing watching him just punt title match after title match. And I think it's the third final, actually. I actually take it back because he lost to Makic in the final in Mexico as well. So he's lost in 3 separate finals this season, 2 in heartbreaking fashion. The Makic one was competitive. I think it went to 2 breakers. But either way, he's been so close. He's been on the doorstep, but he can't actually get inside. We'll see if he can this time around against a young, inexperienced player. But Fonseca has won the next-gen finals this year. He won an ATP title on clay this year. I don't think nerves are going to play a factor for him. He's won titles before. He has a lot of expectations, and it seems like he's really capable of handling the potential adversity this matchup brings. So I'll go with Fonseca in this one. However, I think it's competitive. I don't mind the Fonseca team total over. If you like Fokina, I don't mind the team total over as well. We might get a breaker in this one. We have seen a bunch of long sets so far, mentioning the trend. I mentioned it last episode as well, but I'll bring it up for this one. There has been a tiebreak in 7 straight Fokina matches. 7 in a row. Now, you've seen Fonseca have a couple of close matches as well. 3-setters against Chapo. He ended up having a 7-6, 7-5 against Munar. Team totals have been quite high for both guys, and I do think with the breaker potentially happening, based on the hit rate recently for Fokina, I don't want the over in this match. But if you like a guy to win, I'd rather take the team total. The odds are basically the same, and you can still get there if your guy ends up losing, if you are banking on a competitive set, and with it might going 3 sets. So I don't mind the team total for either guy, but I think Fonseca wins. If Fokina wins, I'll be the first to congratulate him. I'll be happy for him. But at the same point, until I see him actually cross the finish line, I'm not going to assume he does so in one piece. So give me Fonseca in this one. It's mostly just a historical and an emotional fade when it comes to not trusting the psyche of Fokina in big moments, because it seems like he always falls short next to the finish line of a title. Anyway, either way, moving on to the other match, the Sinner match against Zverev. This one's taking place at around 9 a.m. Eastern in Vienna. So for the matchup here, you see Sinner and Zverev on the card, and you immediately assume, you know what, this line actually looks pretty expensive. You might assume based on the matchup alone, Zverev and Sinner will be favored, maybe like minus 400, minus 500, a decent-sized favorite, but Zverev is still a top 5, top 10 player in the world. What's the worst that could happen? Maybe minus 500. How about minus 1,000? That's where we're at for Sinner. Sinner's about minus 900, minus 1,000 in most spots. Zverev's around plus 650, give or take. But either way, it's a massive actual money line price. Now, Sinner for the spread, minus 4.5 is minus 135. Zverev plus 4.5 is plus 115. The over-under's at 20.5. And for the actual set spread, Sinner straight sets minus 235. Zverev to win a set is plus 195. The over 2.5 sets is plus 252. Now, for the head-to-head, faced off in the Australian Open this year, and Sinner curb stomped him, winning in straight sets. Then off his break point, as that was the final of the Aussie Open. Faced off in Cincy last year, and Sinner won in a very competitive 3-set war. US Open in 2023, Zverev did win in 5 sets. Monte Carlo in 2022, Zverev did win in 3. Point is, Zverev head-to-head wise is actually quite good. However, Zverev did win 4 of the first 5 meetings before Sinner's peak officially arrived. And then once 2024 happened, Sinner's undefeated. He's 2-0 against Zverev, and he won in straight sets in the Australian Open final earlier this year. So the path for both guys have been good. Zverev had a bye in there because Greek Sport ended up withdrawing from the event. But he ended up dropping a set to Fernley, which was a very close battle, as he did not look very good. Got better as the event went on. So he beat Fernley in 3, Arnaldi in straight sets, had a bye, and then ended up beating Musetti in straight sets. He's gotten better, though, each match. So props to Zverev. After barely surviving a very, in my opinion, inferior opponent in the first round, he was able to ramp up the actual level, and that's why he's here in the final. As for Sinner, I mean, it's been a cakewalk. Showed up at the King's Slam and ended up winning every single match handily. Beat Tsitsipas, beat Djokovic, beat Alcaraz, all handily, never close. Showed up here and said, you know what, I'm going to do it again in Vienna. And beat Altmaier, beat Kaboli, beat Bublik, and beat de Minaur in straight sets. None of those 4 guys won more than 8 games in a single match. So Sinner's on the warpath again. What else is new? It's why he's a massive favorite. The question is, can Zverev do enough to actually keep the match somewhat close? Now, I saw a lot of people on Twitter, some paid Discord people, talking about Zverev money line at 6-1, saying how disrespectful the price is and how Zverev has some value for yada, yada, yada. Sinner should not be this big of a favorite. Why not? Seriously, why not? Sinner's in great form. He's coasting. He's in God mode again. Like, what do you want me to say? Like Sinner's going to win. I feel like if you're looking at the actual form of both guys, Zverev's been good, but we know Sinner is on another level. Him and Alcaraz are both in a different tier than Zverev. So if you want to go for 6-1 on Zverev, have fun. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, you're going for value, and you're hoping Sinner basically gets injured mid-match. But assuming there's no injury and no type of Greek sport situation where Sinner is maybe up early, has a cramp, has to quit, and he's just fully compromised, or even in Cincinnati where he ends up getting injured early and has to quit against Alcaraz, assuming full health, Sinner's going to win. Like, Sinner's just better than Zverev. It's not even close. So I understand the argument. If you want to go for a Zverev potential maybe spread, if you think 4.5, he keeps it close. We saw de Minaur break Sinner twice. Bublik did not win. He covered 4.5. Like, I understand the argument if you want to go for a spread or maybe a Sinner team total, if you think that Sinner goes to a 7-5 or a 7-6 and then gets pushed in one set before winning. Maybe that's an argument I can understand. It's a compromise. If you want to get really bold, maybe Zverev to win a set at plus 195. But 6-1, I can't believe the price is that big. Really? You can't believe that Sinner, who's been dominating everybody for the last month, basically, is this big of a favorite when he's a god on indoor hard courts. Like, I feel like it's pretty understandable to me. Now, I know Zverev has given Sinner issues in the past. Once again, pre-Sinner prime. And I even know when Sinner went to 3 sets against Zverev in Cincy and he won in a final set war, he was battling an injury and he won the title anyway, beating Tiafoe in the final. So Sinner wasn't even at 100% and he still beat Zverev. So I think that with him being fully healthy, he's going to win. Zverev's too passive. He'll continue to be too passive. And assuming Zverev does not serve 83% on his first serves, I think Sinner will be all over these second serves of Zverev. So I'll go for Sinner. The problem is, how do you bet this? Because he's a massive favorite, and you're looking at basically picking Zverev team total under, or you go for Sinner team total over, and you argue that maybe one set goes to a breaker, and you end up getting a pretty lengthy set, and at that point, you're kind of home free. I am kind of caught in the middle of the two. I don't want to lay the 4.5 because I think 6-4 is reasonable, or there might be an actual 7-6 in there. So, but I mean, Zverev could in theory just mentally check out and Sinner might bury him. So I think I'll back the Zverev serve. I don't mind the Sinner team total over 12.5. Am I going to bet that? Probably not. I think Sinner wins in straight sets, but that's minus 230. So you're kind of priced out of it entirely, unless you make an argument for Zverev in some capacity. I'll make the bare minimum argument, which is Zverev keeps one set close on a relatively fast hard court and then loses. So I'll go with Sinner team total over 12.5 as my thoughts for this one. Zverev money line. Look, if you want to spend some free bets on it, sure, have fun. But I spent actual money on Zverev to beat Sinner on indoor hard court? Hell no. I'm not going to do that. So give me Sinner in straight sets, but I'll go for the Sinner team total over 12.5, giving Zverev some respect to make one set respectable and to force Sinner to go over this team total. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the thoughts for the two finals in Basel and in Vienna. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock and dog, before we get into that, the reminder brought to you by our sponsor, Arnold Fantasy. Play Fans Pick'em. Chance to 5 times your entry to pick different sports, higher or lower on your favorite player stats. Tennis, you can do basketball, baseball, hockey, you name it, but also check out Underdog. Brand new offer for new customers. Play just $5 and $100 bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. We're crushing it with college football and NFL with picks and props, giving away cash prizes every week just for tracking your bets in the ad. Track 5 bets of the same type of model that you built, and you can win $1K. And a reminder, we have a nice discount code with Rhythm. Use code SGPN25 when you download the Rhythm app for a quarter off first month. That Rhythm, once again, promo code SGPN25 for a quarter off your first month. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the preview of the finals in Basel and Vienna. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. So I did lie a little bit. There was one play in the Sinner match I was saving for the lock and dog segment. It's going to show Zverev a bit of respect, but even less respect than the team total over for Sinner. I'm going to the first 4 games prop. Give me 2-2. First 4 games in the first set of the Sinner match, 2-2 at minus 125. Now, once again, I'm picking a Sinner to win the match, obviously, but Zverev and Sinner need to hold serve 2 times each in a row, and we win at minus 125. It's a very cheap price for 2 very good servers on a relatively fast hard court. Sinner has only faced 2 break points in the entire tournament. Zverev's not far behind. He's played 1 less match than Sinner, but he's only faced 3 break points in the entire tournament. So not even breaks of serve. Solely talking about break points faced. 5 break points combined between the 2 of them in the entire event. Both guys are serving very well. So give me 2 holds by each guy, minus 125. It's cashed in 2 of the last 3 head-to-head meetings. But once again, it's a great price on Caesars. First 4 games, 2-2. Minus 125 in the Sinner Zverev match. 2 good servers to hold serve in their first 2 service games. And then at that point, Sinner can kill him. So give me Zverev to not get embarrassed early for the first 10 minutes of this match. First 4 games, 2-2, minus 125 is my lock for the show. For the dog, give me Fonseca team total over 13. Hole number 13 here at plus 105. Fonseca has gone over this team total in all 3 matches of the event. And I will point out, or I should say he's had at least 13 games. I actually have to rewrite that. So he's had at least 13 games in every match so far. He won 13 exactly against Perricard in the first round, ended up going over against Chapo, or he ended up pushing against Chapo with the retirement included. So you're looking at Chapo, who was down 4-1 in that 3rd set. They alternated 6-3s, so Fonseca ended up getting to 13 before the actual game. But either way, Fonseca went over this number against Munar in straight sets, winning 14. Point is, he's at least pushed this number in every single match so far. We know that this matchup could be close. Said before, Fokina has had a breaker in 7 straight matches. So if you end up getting Fonseca winning a breaker and then winning in straight sets, he still gets to 13, which is a push. Or you get a 3-set marathon, you end up getting maybe even a Munar repeat of a 7-6, 7-5 scenario, and he goes over by winning in straight sets. But a couple ways to get there. Lines are very close on the sports book, picking a very close match. And I do think you're looking at what could be a very, very evenly matched battle. But for that reason, give me Fonseca. I will add in a couple of scripts where Fokina does win his first ever ATP title, but it's a marathon either way. It's never easy for Fokina. He's played in 4 career ATP title matches. All 4 of them had a 7-5 or a 7-6 set, and a couple of them had 3-set marathons. So a couple ways to get there. I think Fonseca does win, but in theory, he could go over this number in a very competitive loss. But give me the breaker attachment. Give me some type of long set. Couple ways to get there. Give me a Fonseca team total over 13, whole number at plus 105 as my dog for the show. So once again, the lock and dog. The lock's going to be on Sinner and Zverev. First 4 games in the first set, 2-2, minus 125 on Caesars. For the dog, offshore, by the way, it's going to be Fonseca team total over 13 at plus 105. So going to wrap it up for the show. Back once again for the preview of the Paris Masters. So we're going to break down the outrights and the quarter odds for the next episode. Till next time, you can find me on Twitter, Reichel Radio. Good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.